A very good morning to you, Karima. I don't know if you heard my colleague reading out that EFF statement. Give us some sort of context into those briefing notes. What was the content, and what is it about them that has gotten the EFF up in arms?
First of all, you need to ask the EFF why they are so afraid of me, because the briefing notes is what all producers do. I suggest that you talk to your own producer and consult your own notes about how you are told to approach stories. The EFF has no idea what I do at ENCA. They make assumptions about what I do at ENCA. Its spokesperson, Mr. Ndlozi, issued a tweet on the day that Martin Slangu left ENCA saying, I'm going to take over. Mr. Jeremy Merz was announced as the interim head of ENCA, and the EFF continued to say that I'm going to take over. So the EFF's take on me is based on lies. When we protested outside the SABC against editorial interference, when Mr. Claudio Mutsuwaneng was threatening journalists at the SABC, Mr. Julius Malema said, I can't take over the SABC. The EFF is a threat to our democracy. I'm not going to negotiate with the EFF if I can do my job as a journalist. I'm not going to seek their permission, and I'm not going to ask them for the right to do my work. What I do at ENCA is of absolute no concern to them. My producer's notes to my producers is what I've been doing for more than 20 years. It's what every single producer does. So Mr. Julius Malema supposedly outing me is complete nonsense and utter rubbish.
I don't know if you were watching his media briefing just now. He says you are not a journalist and he suspects you work for state security. What have you got to say to these assertions?
Mr. Julius Malema is obsessed with me, has been obsessed with me from the beginning. He is seriously afraid of the fact that the journalism that I do is the kind of journalism that actually exposes the EFF as thugs who parade as politicians. I don't work for state security. I'm a journalist. I'm employed at ENCA. I'm employed at 702. I brief journalists every day. I brief producers every day. I have 2 shows that I work on. In fact, I produce more than one show at ENCA. And so what Mr. Julius Malema is saying is complete and utter nonsense. But here's the thing. This is not actually about me. This is a party who chokes journalists in the full precinct of the parliament. What do you think Floyd Shivambu would have done with a journalist if he was alone? This is a party who actually allows its supporters to threaten me with rape, with sexual assault, with violence, who allow their supporters to issue racist statements. I've been harassed for the last 48 hours by the EFF. And the EFF is consistently wrong about what I do. And the EFF prides itself on facts, and yet none of what the EFF says about me has anything to do with facts. The issue at ENCA is that they don't know what I do there. They never called me to ask me. They never called my bosses to ask. They made assumptions about my briefing notes. The same with the SABC. They assumed I was going to take the SABC over. Where am I supposed to get all this power from? The EFF must actually really explain to the nation why it threatens journalists, why it threatens women in particular with rape, with sexual assault, with violence, if they have the temerity to actually ask them a decent question.
What point is being made in the action of releasing your personal phone number, and what sort of reaction are they expecting from their followers?
They're expecting their followers to harass me. They're expecting their followers to threaten me. And that's precisely what happened. I've already laid a charge at the police station about an EFF member who has threatened me. I have heard absolutely nothing from the police on this matter. In fact, when I was at the Sophia Town police station, the one police officer refused to actually take my statement. I had to fight to lay a statement. The EFF is dangerous for our democracy. It is dangerous for the freedom of the press. It is dangerous for media freedom. And the problem is because the ANC is so divided, many journalists actually rely on the EFF for gossip inside the ANC, and they use the EFF as sources, and they often collude with them. And so at press conferences, the EFF can out journalists A or B and say, we speak to you in the evening, and then you say this, and then you say that. Mr. Malema has never been able to do that with me. Mr. Malema's assumptions about me are based on inaccurate information that is not factual. Mr. Ndlozi sent out a tweet on the day that Martin Shlangu left the ENCA and said, I'm going to take over. That very same day, Jeremy Mag was announced as the interim person. I'm not taking over at ENCA. I was outside at a protest at the SABC, and they said, I'm taking over the SABC. So where are the facts that Mr. Malema is basing his allegations on? He's talking absolute nonsense. And the fact that he wants to police my journalism should worry everyone in society, because today it's me, tomorrow it can be you, Desiree.
The South African National Editors Forum has used its social media platforms to call on Julius Malema and the entire EFF leadership to apologize to Karima Brown. They've also said they condemn the systematic abuse and cruel social media attack leveled against talk show host and veteran journalist Karima Brown over the last 24 hours by EFF leader Julius Malema and his supporters. What do you think about this show of support from SANEF?
Well, I appreciate all support from every quarter in South Africa, because I think this is not about me, Desiree. I think this is about the quality of our democracy. I think the EFF wants to narrow the democratic space which allows us to ask critical questions. If you notice, for example, the EFF is implicated in various scandals. We've already had deaths in places like Limpopo, in terms of videos of whistleblowers who have spoken out. We have a report of internal fighting in the EFF about the way in which women are treated. So I think this is a discussion for society to have. Should the EFF be on the ballot paper? Should a party that actually threatens journalists, that condone rape threats against journalists, that condone sexual violence against journalists, should such a party be able to stand for elections in a country like South Africa? That's the fundamental question that we should ask ourselves, because these people take an oath of office to serve the public. They take an oath of office to uphold the constitution of our country, and yet they are involved every day in engaging and threatening everyone who disagrees with them. They want to basically tell me where I can and can't work. They want to tell me where I can be a journalist, what I can and can't do. They have no right to do that. I don't need the EFF's permission to be a journalist. I don't need the permission to do my work as a producer of shows. I don't need to explain myself to the EFF in relation to my job. The EFF is a threat to our democracy, and South Africans must ask themselves, is the kind of party that we want in a democratic South Africa? Is this the kind of party that ought to be on the ballot box? This is a party that threatens the fundamental rights of a democratic society, and that is the freedom of journalists to do their jobs without fear or favor.
Karima, you say you've gone the legal route, you've approached the legal enforcement system and opened a case, but we've just seen Julius Malema addressing media, and he's unrepentant and he's not going to apologize. Where to from here?
That's exactly the thing. I don't want an apology from the EFF. I don't want anything from the EFF. I want to be allowed to do my job, and I want the institutions of our country to protect me to do my job. I want our constitution to protect me to do my job. I want the police to protect me from being safe from the attacks that I'm getting from the EFF thugs when I do my job as a journalist. Journalism is not a crime. The EFF wants to isolate me, wants to present me as a person who works for state security. They did the exact same thing with Thandeka Kubule. And they think that she was part of Stratcom. They owe her R1 million. They still haven't given her a cent. She had to go to court, and Mr. Malema is still walking the streets. We've got to ask our law enforcement agencies why it is that the EFF can actually violate our Constitution, can actually violate the rights of journalists to do their jobs that is enshrined in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, why they are allowed to walk free. We've got to ask the authorities why these people are not being arrested, why the people who are making threats against journalists are not being called in for questioning, why are they not being held accountable. That is the question that our authorities must answer.
The last question, I imagine it's on our viewers' minds as well. Why you say that Julius Malema doesn't like your brand of journalism? What do you know about the EFF that makes them uneasy around you?
I don't know what makes the EFF uneasy around me. I can't read their minds. What I do know is that Mr. Julius Malema was involved in numerous scandals relating to allegations of corruption. What I know is that his party was given registration money by a known cigarette smuggler to actually fight the elections. What I know about Mr. Julius Malema is that he had to pay his taxes, which was 16 million rand. What I do know about Mr. Malema is that if we do a lifestyle audit on him now, he won't be able to explain how he affords his lifestyle. That's what I know about Mr. Julius Malema. That is what I know about many leaders of the EFF. I want to ask, what is a party that threatens journalists with rape, with sexual assault, with violence, with racism, going on the ballot box? What is the IEC going to do about this? What is Parliament going to do about this? What are our institutions of law enforcement going to do about this? This is happening to me. This happened to Paulie van Wyk. This happened to Tandeka Kubule. This happened to William Boko. The list is endless. They continue to go on like this. We took the BLF to court. We managed to get a restraining order against them when they attacked Peter Bruce and assaulted me outside his house. The EFF needs to actually be held accountable by our society, by our democratic institutions. There needs to be an investigation into the systematic abuse of journalists by them. How can they be on the ballot box when they violate a fundamental principle of democracy, which is that we should have the right to have a free press and a free media?
Karima, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us at short notice.
Thank you.
Obviously, a story we will continue to follow. Also, William Bird